Good morning, sunshines. Welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while since I posted my last filming video like this. I know I've been posting a lot of shorts, but I figured since it's 2022, why not we start the year with a marbled buttercream cake. So if that's something that interests you, make sure you keep watching all the way to the end, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you're notified when I upload my next video. Okay, so I already baked my layers and I chopped off that little dome part that you can get on the top of the cake, just so that my layers are nice and even. Once I leveled my cakes, I placed them in the freezer overnight, and now we are ready to decorate. Now, if you watched any of my videos before, you know that I love to freeze my cake layers just because it's super easy to work with, and you can also juggle with them. Well, we're not gonna juggle with these cakes. However, Sierra. So we're gonna add a little bit of buttercream just to secure the cakes onto this cake board. Make sure it's nice and centered. And I have a separate bowl here with my cream cheese buttercream, and I'm going to apply that to the middle of each of the cake layers. Now, if you notice, I didn't fill it all the way to the edge of my cake, just because I'm going to use my vanilla buttercream to pipe a little dam around. That way the cream cheese doesn't ooze out of the layers when I stack them. And I'm using a piping bag just so that I can control the amount of buttercream that I place onto my cake. And you can find the link to these bags on Amazon in the description box below. Now, there is such a thing as overfilling your cake, so you just want to keep an eye on that, just so that your cake isn't bulging, because that is a common mistake that most cake decorators tend to have. That's not the only reason why your cakes will bulge on the sides, but that's just one of the reasons why. Alright, and since this is my top layer, I'm just going to flip my cake over. That way the bottom part of the cake is on the top, just so that I have a nice, smooth, and even layer. Alright, now especially if you're going to be marbling cakes, you want to make sure that there's absolutely no crumbs or cake showing in the outer layer of your buttercream. And to prevent this, we are going to be doing a crumb coat. So you basically just put buttercream. You can use a spatula, but I find it so much easier if you put it in a piping bag. You're going to place your buttercream in a piping bag and apply a thin layer of buttercream around this naked cake. And we're just going to smooth it out. Alright, and then once we have our cake nice and evenly coated with buttercream, we are going to smooth it out one last time, scrape off these edges, and we're going to place this in the freezer for about 10 minutes. Because my layers were already frozen, it's already hardening the buttercream, but I'm just going to pop it in the freezer for another 10 minutes just so it's really solid. Alright, and while my cake is in the freezer, let's work on our buttercream. So I have about a cup of white buttercream, just my vanilla buttercream, and I added 3 different kinds of blue. So I mixed my blue buttercreams in different bowls, and I just added it to my buttercream just like this. And for this marbled buttercream technique, this is how you want to place your buttercream into one bowl. You start off with your base color that you want the cake, the majority of the cake to be. So I want my cake to be white with some blue marbling in it. So I started with about a cup of white and just a couple dollops of my blue buttercream. I'm then going to take my spatula, and I'm not going to mix it in. I'm just going to kind of cut and fold just to kind of incorporate it real slightly. So I don't know if you can see this, but I'll try to do it here. We're just cutting it in and kind of gently folding just a little. And that's basically it. I'm going to clean off my spatula here. And we're going to apply this to the cake. Obviously, this is not going to cover the whole entire cake, but it's just a nice start. Alright, now our crumb coat is firm to the touch, and usually this is where we would start putting our marbling on. But I'm making this cake a little different because I'm going to be adding a special message to this cake. So I used my edible printer and I printed out a handwritten note that she's my cousin, while her son wrote to her for her birthday. I printed his little message out and I glued it using edible glue onto a piece of fondant, and I'm going to place this onto the cake. And I'm just going to stick it on just like this. And I'm going to use the rest of my buttercream that I had in my piping bag to kind of seal that edge that's connecting the fondant to the cake. So this is going to give it kind of that seamless look, that the letter is actually inside of the buttercream rather than placed directly on top of the buttercream. And now it's time to do our marbling. So we're going to grab a little at a time. This does take time, by the way, so if you're kind of looking for a faster method, you can try other methods that you can find on YouTube, but this is my favorite way of marbling. So you grab a little on your spatula and you're just going to plop it onto the cake. You're not going to smooth it or anything. Just like that. And you're going to do that around the whole entire cake. So there's about ½ inch of buttercream for my final coat, and I know that sounds crazy right now, but we are going to scrape it away. So just give yourself some room to scrape away. You don't want to make the layer too thin because then you're going to reach into your crumb coat and that could lead to crumbs getting into your outer layer of buttercream, and it doesn't give you that much room for marbling. Alright, so that was about a cup of buttercream. And that is how much I got for my cake. So I'm probably going to need maybe 3 more cups, but I'm going to just do another cup of buttercream with another dollop, with a few dollops of the blue buttercream. So again, you start with the white and then you add the dollops of the blue. And you're cutting and you are not mixing. I have seen a method where you use a piping bag and you pipe different colored dots on the cake and then you smooth it one way and then you smooth it the other way. I haven't tried that technique yet, so if you have tried that before, please leave it in the comments if that worked for you or not. So I'm seeing that this cake is a little more blue than I would like, so I'm going to add more white to the buttercream. Probably about 1/4 cup more. Alright, and then I added a little bit more white buttercream, so it's now up to 3/4 cup. So I added 1/4 cup and then 1/2 cup. Alright, and for this step, it's really important that you smooth the cake out without over smoothing it. We're just trying to get most of those air pockets out, those air bubbles, but we're not totally trying to make a nice smooth edge, if that makes sense. So we're just going to take our bench scraper and smooth it to where we get majority of those pockets out. A little cake tip here is if you want to have sharp edges, you can check out how I got my sharp edges in this video up here, but also you're going to start with applying buttercream on the top of your cake first. That way when you scrape the sides, of your cake, you're going to push that buttercream up over the top edge, and you can just cut that off with an X-Acto knife. Alright, and now it's time to place this cake into the freezer for about 15 minutes. That way our buttercream is nice and solid. That way we're able to scrape it away without having the colors bleeding into each other. Alright, so it's been about 15 minutes, so I'm going to scrape away a little bit of buttercream to reveal the marbling effect. If it's easier for you, you can start off just by scraping away a little section at a time. If you notice that it's getting kind of hard to scrape away that buttercream, like it's getting kind of stuck, just clean your spatula or just clean your bench scraper and it should scrape away nicely again. Alright, and I'm going to put this back into the freezer just for another 5 to 10 minutes so that this little lip of buttercream that's on the top of my cake freezes, and then I can cut it off using an X-Acto knife. Alright guys, so this is the last part of our cake. I really like the rustic edge of this cake. I really like the rustic look of the cake when the edges are above the cake. I'm not sure. I kind of want to cut it off to make a sharp edge, but at the same time, I really like this look, so... no, I'm going to leave it. I was going to cut the edge off to get that sharp edge, but I like the rustic look. So that is how I do my marbled buttercream cakes. If you guys like this technique, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a great day. God bless.